you, but you know. Call the meeting to order. Let the record reflect all council members are present except Ms. Malcolm. We'll move into the monthly department reports, starting with code.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly going over the highlights from December report. We had a total of 1,052 calls in the code office. We've been working on collecting business and alcohol license, new and renewals. And in conjunction with business license, we've also been working on collecting personal property taxes. And then for the city marshal, he wrote 11 repair cleanup orders, and we got compliance on 9 of those before the end of the month, so that's quite good percentage-wise. Everything else on there kind of speaks for itself. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
Any questions for Patrick? Okay, if not, thank you, Patrick.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Electric and telecom, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. We used a little over 13.5 million kilowatt hours. Last month at a cost of $950,000, which was up, but I expect next month to be even more up. We had a record month for usage. The system, the entire state system went to a level 2 alert, which means level 3 alert, we start shedding load. Everybody starts shedding load because the system's getting overloaded. Never seen a level 3 in my 25 years. I've only seen 2 level 2s. So there was a lot of usage going on. One of the problems were there were a couple of units down, one in Plant Wisely, which was a MEAG, Georgia Power, and ENC unit, and Georgia Power had 3 units shut down because of load, and that's what caused the misbalance in the system. But they handled it, everything was fine. We had a top user in telecommunications, 667 gig, and staff has talked about, we have a way to handle that. Our limit is 200 gig. We never have really limited anyone because we haven't had that. We haven't had a backhaul problem. Well, now it's becoming to be a backhaul problem. We're going to use the tools y'all have given us to address this. 138 or over out of the 2,700 or so customers were over the 200 gig limit. Had a peak usage of 952 megabits per second, and that's where the problem occurs. Our total capacity is 1 gig, so we were just below that capacity. Now, Dave is working with a lot of that traffic is Netflix, and he is working with Netflix to get it. Interconnect agreement with them, so we can take that traffic off the internet bandwidth side and put it directly on that link to Netflix and see how that affects it. I think that'll save us some money going that route. Everything else was pretty much in line with what regularly goes on. We didn't have any outages in the snow, which I was very happy of. And it's points of interest. We got all our automatic electronic defibrillator batteries changed here in the office and in all the electric trucks. Finished the spacer cable project behind Quad. Foods and redirected fiber at the hospital. The hospital had us directing fiber through the old building out to the new building because of some HMA type communications they still had at that building. Well, all that got taken out of that building is now all at the new hospital finally. And that's it. I'll take any questions y'all have.
Okay, no questions for Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Finance Department.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few of my highlights. Under the customer count, all the electric, natural gas, water, wastewater, up about 1% over last year. But I did want to point out that internet customers are up 10% over this time last year. Residential phone customers, 16%, and then the commercial phone customers are up 5%, which is pretty good count up over last year. So we're showing some growth in that area. On the sales tax, we ran 130,000 for December of 13, and December of 12, we ran 133,000. I did look in January, we're up about 10,000 to 144. So hopefully that'll stay up, but I would imagine that increase is probably from the holidays. The clinic utilization is running over 100%. I don't know if it's because of illnesses or just we're utilizing the clinic more, but they are working in as many as the schedule will allow them to, and we are getting ready to add I think it's 4 more hours onto Wednesday's schedule. So we'll try that for a while. It'll be pretty much an all-day thing on Wednesday. So hopefully that'll kind of ease up some things. We haven't been having a lot of no-shows. We only had 5 no-shows in December, which generally they run 10 to 12 a month. Did want to say that our field work for the audit will start on Monday, and so will our new customer community service liaison person. We hired Patrice Broughton. She'll be starting Monday as well, and hope to just get her started working on the website and some other. The December financials are not in here. We were hoping to kind of get you out something, but the staff's still working on getting those entries in. So I'll be glad to take your questions.
Any questions for Renee? Okay, thank you, Renee. Fire Department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fire Department ended the year out with a total of 2,000 calls. In December, they had $166 calls, conducted 212 hours of training. Out of the 166 calls they conducted, 106 were med assist type calls. On a more current note, the final inspection on the pumper truck will be this Thursday. The truck should be in the city of Monroe sometime the following week. It should be in service. We got a projected in-service date of 21 February, with all the equipment on it. Just everybody trained, familiar with it. That's been a big event, especially for the guys that work over there, but I know it has for y'all too, but it's coming to a head, and so we're going to actually get to see and stood up a picture of the real thing probably late next week. Pending your questions or find out any other questions.
Any questions on fire? Okay, moving to Police Department.
Thanks, sir. We had 4,556 calls for service in the month of December. We had 1,423 calls to the PD. We had 210 city court cases, conducted 32 hours of training, 69 Part 1 crimes, 166 Part 2 crimes, arrested 103 adults and 7 juveniles. Community service folks picked up 340 pounds of trash. You can see the community events. One I'd like to highlight was Christmas Parade. It was a great event. I've heard a lot of people say this, but I do believe it was most people that's been in the downtown area of Monroe in my lifetime. And got to say something about the girls' corps being back. That was, I thought that was such a special thing for the city to have that and for them to be here. I just think that was great. On some of the more recent notes, we've made 11 arrests on some of the recent burglaries we've had. These burglaries have been going on during the daytime hours, and we've been doing a little Facebook thing for, I don't know, just a few months now. We have had just a tremendous response to requests for people just watching what was going on in the communities. It's had a real impact to us being able to solve some of these burglaries and enter all those. On another note of just good citizenship today, one of the victims got a phone call from somebody. I won't go into the victim or the person that's done this, but they said, I found the item that belongs to you. What the item was, I will say that, it was a University of Georgia classroom from the 50s. And, of course, the victim had contacted us, and that kind of set off some alarms in our head about what might be about to happen. But anyway, we've done what we needed to do. It was simply a child playing in the yard and found this item, and I just think that's, that's a that returned that. We done something for that person, but that was just a great example of citizenship and doing the right thing, and just real proud of that citizen and another person that got that item back was real proud. But any other questions?
Chief, I've been to some of these classes that we attend, and they talk about using social media more for the police department. To let the citizens know when there's something going on, what's happening, put it out there, and let the community see it and get involved to help you more.
Well, that's what we're doing with this, and it's amazing. We had just like when we talked about the number of folks that were arrested and asking the citizens to be watching for certain things. In a period, we've had close to 2,000 people look at it. When you got population of around 14,000, you got almost 20% of the population, or one of the mathematicians can tell me the right number, but that is a large amount of people looking at that. Today, when I put out just a simple thank you, in about 20 minutes, 180-something people have looked at it. So it's just, you know, can be a bad thing for you, but it's also an excellent tool. And we think we're using it the right way, and we've been real pleased with the feedback that we get off of that. And really just the number of people that we reach so quickly. You know, it's amazing to me how quick you get a response on.
Chief, several of these people you just recently arrested, I think, were juveniles.
Right.
Is there anything that you see that's causing so many kids to get out and have this certain burst of
Well,
trouble?
sometimes I get not in trouble, but some folks don't like what I'm about to tell you. We have a parenting issue at times, and that's you know, mom and daddy problem, and it's you know, I've heard folks talk about it takes a village, and it takes, you know, it really helps if there's a mom and daddy or a grandparent or somebody that's raising a child. It hasn't got to be two people, but you've got to have somebody that has some, that puts some standards on. And you know, it's tough too, like three of the first four that were apprehended were sent off for 30 days. One of them was sent off for be from 1 year to 5 years. And the juvenile court works off a guideline from the state. There's a point system on sentencing, and that's what they work off. The last four, their points wasn't up, so you know they were returned, you know, to the parents, but you know, and that's not the only thing. I mean, influence. You know, if you got one that's kind of a leader, he may influence another young person that's not a bad kid, but they be influenced, and so it's that's one of those pretty tough issues that our whole nation faces, Mr. Bradley. But it's a good question, and you know,
But it is
school's
tough.
out, Christmas holidays, and you know, kids. In situations where he's in the alternative school or whatever, their days are not as long as the regular school, so they have at idle time, you know, idle hands, and I can't remember the old saying, but you know, they'll get you in trouble if you're not engaged. And so that's been some of it. And there was an adult that was involved associated with the juveniles. So that's, you know, so we got an adult. Kind of giving some leadership there in the wrong direction too.
Thank you. I just, hear about and read about the number of apprehensions y'all made. It makes me proud of the police department, the work you're doing in apprehending those. I think that's a great thing. Makes me sad to see that many kids are causing trouble, you know, to start with. That's,
Well, just in trouble.
they're just in trouble.
I think most folks, if you look back, you know, the greatest blessing a kid can have is a set of parents or parent somebody that really holds them to a standard and looks after them, so.
Well, most kids now have parents who were kids when they had them, so.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am, it's a tough situation.
kids having kids.
Any other questions for Chief Glass? Okay, thank you, Chief. Moving to solid waste.
Thank you, Mayor. Our December report is pretty consistent with other months. We did have a spike in our tonnage at the transfer station, mainly because of the holiday. You know, it's usually spike during that time of year. And I just want to add, I'd like to thank the citizens for being patient. We've been on a modified schedule for like the last couple of months, mainly because of a little equipment downtime and the unfavorable weather we've been having, but we are back on the normal schedule. And I'll take any questions.
All right, any questions for Danny? Okay, thank you. Streets and Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just highlighting a few areas of the report. We rented out the community building 7 times during the month of December. A lot of holiday and family events going on over there. Our grounds crew picked up 1 ton of 2,000 pounds of litter throughout the city. We did 6 repairs on some streets throughout the city. Our sign and marking division, our building maintenance crew, and our fleet maintenance continued to work off of work orders, getting stuff accomplished on an efficient basis. And outside of that, I'll highlight a few points of interest. During the month of December, we dumped approximately 80 tons of leaves, which is an astonishing number to me, knowing what a leaf weighs. To have 80 tons of that picked up that month was a pretty big number. We are currently in our 3rd rotation, or 3rd cycle through. The city, I know we're still behind on that, and we're making headway every day as long as that truck's running in that process. Only other point of interest is I'm proud to say we successfully weathered the effects of Winter Storm Leon. I think all of our streets were safe and passable somewhere in the early morning hours of Wednesday. And that's something I'm very proud of, to brag on our guys for a little bit. I think we were way ahead of the game when it comes to making sure our streets were safe. Other than that, I'll be glad to take any questions regarding the Streets and Transportation Department.
Can you, bring some crush and put on that cutout right there at Miss Cooper's house?
On Wall Street?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
This is a hole there now. Thank you.
Let me ask you this question. During the snow and ice we had, did we have everything we needed?
We had sufficient assets. I don't know that, not knowing the outcome or how much of the winter event you're actually going to get, I don't know if you can ever have enough rock or enough salt. We have what was plenty for that event. You know, if it had been more than that, we probably would have had enough. I feel confident that we were more than prepared for the event, and I think the outcome speaks for itself as far as that. But as far as machinery, personnel, and the assets that we used to prepare for that type of winter event, we were prepared.
I just want to thank y'all for the job you did during that situation. Y'all did an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jeremiah? Okay, if not, we'll move into water, sewer, and gas.
Thank you, sir. Our water plant processed 66 million gallons during the month of December. Distribution side, we had 106 work orders issued. Responded to 79 service calls, changed out 13 meters. We had 25 water leaks. This is kind of that time of the year that we're going to have a lot of those. We had our initial, we submitted our bid for the water meter change out to GEPA. We have written to this point, and they approved everything that's went through, so we're basically in the final stages of going through and getting everybody kind of together to make sure we've got everything in there to actually put it out for bid. Should happen sometime towards the middle end of this month. On the wastewater side, we treated 59.6 million. Gallons in a month. Had 14 work orders. The CDBG project, they continued work on. I know this past week they actually pulled the last main down Douglas Street, I believe. And now basically all they've got left is to tie over the services, and we'll finally be finished with the 2011 grant job. And we can get started on the 2013 project. Natural gas, we sold a little over 38,000 MCFs. We had 107 work orders. Responded to 4 leaks. We did install 1 new service, and we finished sizing all the gas meters in the system to get everything entered into QS1 where we know what everybody's size is. At the training academy, we held 10 classes in the month of December, which is generally going to be a slower month just because of the holidays, but we had 55 attendees. And this month, we're actually putting together, we're going to add 6 to 7 water classes once we get approval through the state, so that'll bring us up to about 12. That we can actually teach, and I think we're going to have a good year at the training center. Anybody has any questions, we'd be glad to answer.
Are we up and running with the tankless water heater?
On for the rebate,
Yeah.
everything, we are.
Okay.
We got one customer that's swapped.
And you
up.
simply come in and treat it like a new customer, like there's a credit check for that payment plan and all that?
Yeah, whatever the policy that we passed, and that'll
Okay.
be something else that we'll get our new, person kind of involved in and get her, maybe do some marketing.
It'll help with marketing and advertising. I think we've come up with some things to send out to customers, to make them aware of what we're offering. So I look for that to increase over the next coming few months.
Okay, any more questions? Thank you. Before we move into committee information, I just want to say thank you for, especially Jeremiah, Brian. I know you didn't really have much work to do, but you was up all night long making sure the power. Didn't go out. You guys did a great job, staff. Matthew was trying to figure out if we should open up City Hall to keep our citizens safe. So you guys did a lot, and your employees did a lot, but you kept us out of the news, and thank you very much. Now moving into committee information. Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a work session, a Finance Committee meeting on January 27th, and the minutes are in your package for you to I have asked Ms. Prather to kind of hit the high points this evening, so to bring everybody up to speed.
Thank you. We did have quite a lengthy meeting, went over everything with our insurance consultants. The first matter that we handled was our property and casualty renewal. Bob Seville came and went over the renewal, which is, all the information is there, and we committee did recommend to approve the plan as it was presented to council. So without going into all the details, there was a slight increase in a couple of line items. One was, as I remember, was the vehicles. We had some additional vehicles that we purchased this year, and then our cyber liability line item was increased a little bit. So, but that was the committee's recommendation, was to present it to council for a full vote. The second item was the ancillary renewal, which is our dental, life, vision, disability insurance renewals. All of those are set to renew at pretty much no increase except for the dental, and they're still, I just talked to them today, they're still negotiating with Delta Dental. Our hopes are to stay with Delta Dental since we've been with them for a couple of years, but they did come back with an increase, but as I said, they're negotiating and hoping to have just, if an increase at all, maybe somewhere around 10%, which wouldn't be a lot of money over a year's time. So the council recommended to renew pending feedback on the dental coverage, but we'd like to just go ahead and get a motion to renew going with Delta Dental or the lowest bid, whatever the consultant recommends. If we could do that tonight and handle it, would be good. And we also had the health renewal and plan policy changes. Jim Lou with Covenant came and discussed at length our renewal. Got a very good renewal this year. The rates are staying the same. For our employees, with a possible increase in 2005, thinking that we'll offer a couple of lines of coverage, one with a higher deductible type coverage to give the employees a little more choices. The committee recommended a plan design change to pre-authorize step therapy for specialty prescribed drugs with a specialty drug copay of 20% and a cap of $500. Out-of-pocket per prescription for the approval to the council. And that is just for specialty drugs, and they already have the pre-authorized step therapy in place, but we felt the need to do a copay and pull that out of our drug plan. And then the committee also recommended, it's going to recommend a renewal of the health insurance withholding based on the Bravo Points program. base amount remaining the same as 2013, which would mean if their points stayed the same or got better, they would not have an increase in premiums. It would just still be based on the points. Then we also discussed the clinic RFQ renewal and any changes, and just went over what the RFQ entailed, and we'll be reporting back once those results come in.
Thank you, Ms. Prather. Going back to item 2, in the minutes, do I have a motion that we go ahead and recommend renewing the ancillary insurances based on the feedback from Delta Dental, or going with the lowest bid, or going with the recommendation of the consultant? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion, to have a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries, so we'll, next Tuesday, have that on the consent agenda.
All this will be on the consent.
Thank you, Mayor, that's all we have this evening.
Okay. Airport have anything?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Public Works?
No, sir.
Okay. Utilities?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Thompson, are you gonna handle this surplus items?
Chris is gonna handle the surplus for us.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We've got 3 trucks right now that we're asking approval of surplus. They're all 3, basically they're older, and it's gotten to the point that any repairs to them are costing a lot more than what the vehicle itself is actually worth. When we purchased the 2 F-350s, and we're getting those put into operation, and we kind of shift some things around. We've got these 3 that are just, they're going to kind of become to where they just sit there. And it's serve us better to be able to surplus these items.
We're just not correct in saying that we have already approved the replacement for these. We don't need to buy any more.
We won't replace these 3.
No, we won't replace
They're just ones that have been around literally longer than I've been here.
2 of them been here about as long as I've been here.
What's that mean?
Are there any other questions? About surplus equipment? If not, is there a motion to approve these items for surplus?
Motion to approve these 3 items for surplus.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those on the committee say, in favor say aye.
Aye.
We will recommend the list to council. Fleet diagnostic equipment. Mr.
Yes, sir.
Thompson,
That is me.
say
Spoken to the entire committee about this, but I'll repeat this for the full council's benefit. I think it's about a year ago or a little longer, I mentioned to Jeremiah we were still having to ship out some of our large bucket trucks for repair, causing delays in getting the trucks back in service and expense with someone else having to do the work on the vehicle. Mr. Steele let me know, or informed me that we didn't have the diagnostic equipment to do the work on that size equipment, and I requested he look into getting it. And we looked at it over those few months, and we actually had this at our meeting down at when we discussed the budget and the CIP, and this is one of the first items we placed on the electric CIP, was to buy a diagnostic tool that could repair or could help Jeremiah repair the large bucket trucks that we have. Jeremiah's gone out and gotten 2 quotes. One did not make it to the digital document, and that's probably more than likely my fault. But I have it here, and I will email all y'all a copy of that. One is from J-Pro. Fleet Diagnostics, and one is from Snap-on. And I'm gonna let Jeremiah speak to how these things work, because he understands that a little better. But my understanding is the J-Pro will work on the big equipment. The Snap-on will work on any piece of, anything with wheels we own. J-Pro is $18,362, and the Snap-on is $13,900. $44.99, and I will turn this over to Mr. Steele to explain to you how these things work.
Basically, the J-Pro is strictly heavy-duty vehicles, which is the minority of our fleet, but it's been a major expense for each department that deals with larger equipment. It'll diagnose everything we have. Just as the Snap-on piece will. The Snap-on piece is not only going to diagnose our larger pieces, but it will diagnose anything from a meter reader's truck all the way to the largest piece of fleet in the equipment. And basically, we're going to be able to be more efficient in our shop. I'm not saying that buying this piece is we're going to be able to fix every issue in-house. We're still going to have some stuff that we send out. But within a matter of minutes, we're going to know what the problem is, where before we're having to send it to the other side of Athens at the shortest distance, if not Atlanta, or on the other side of Atlanta, just to get diagnosed, and it may have been a fuse blown. So we're increasing the efficiency by buying this diagnostic system, and it's going to be very beneficial to the utilities department, to our department, to anybody that drives a truck that belongs to the city or a car. We're going to be able to at least diagnose in-house. And it's not like we could send the stuff now anywhere locally to get repaired. So there again, we're cutting expenses, getting stuff that goes way up the road to be fixed, to be able to do a lot more in-house. And I think we're going to be a more efficient fleet maintenance division with this addition.
And my thing is the timing. When I've got a bucket truck down, or I'm sure when the chief has a fire truck down, we want those back on the road. As quick as possible. Now, saving money with them being able to do it is great, and I'm all for that, but being able to get that bucket truck back out in the fleet and working in the system is a big thing to me. It was pointed out to me that the Snap-on is on your document. I just didn't see it that well. And I'll take any questions y'all have, or Jeremiah.
Well, now, did I understand, Jeremiah, you've been using this piece of equipment?
This piece actually was given, the Snap-on piece was given to us on loan for us to demo, and it had it's been a blessing in the shop for the month that we've had it. It's helped throughout the city or throughout the fleet diagnose some issues that we would have been clueless about, turned some headaches and busted knuckles into a 5-minute solution, basically.
Since most vehicles today have all the computer stuff, do we have any diagnostic
We
equipment?
do. We have a very generic diagnostic system that requires yearly updates or a couple of times a year updates, where this Snap-on system now, the updates for it are, you only have to buy them when they're made available. With some of these other diagnostic systems like the J-Pro, it is required that you do a service contract with each manufacturer each year, and you get into big costs with that. But we do have a diagnostic system now. It's nothing compared to this Snap-on unit that we have.
And it won't work on the bigger trucks. It'll work on a regular pickup truck. It'll work on a regular, down to my little 350s and 550s, it'll work on those, but it won't work on the big international, the big tall trucks or the fire trucks, from my understanding.
And there are no local people that have diagnostic equipment that would diagnose the bucket trucks, for example?
Well, there's no local people that work on this,
Not necessarily to work on, but just to do the diagnosis.
not that I'm aware of.
When you send something out to be diagnosed, what's the average cost?
Just to
Just
hook
for
the,
the
com- it would vary. I don't know what's a specific answer. I know when you take it to a dealership to have it hooked up, it's a couple $100 just for the
Well,
one to hook.
the tow bill is, to tow one of those bucket trucks to Atlanta on the side of Athens is over $700, just to get it there.
But if the Snap-on can test anything,
That's the one we want you to buy.
and the J-Pro is more expensive, how do you explain that? Why is J-Pro?
You'd have to call J-Pro. I don't know. I don't understand it either. Yeah, we were requested to buy the Snap-on.
Have y'all talked to anybody that's used the other?
The J-Pro or the Snap-on?
Well, have you talked to anybody that's used either one or both of them?
Well, I know a place that we carry a lot of our bigger stuff. Over in Athens uses a Snap-on. Thomas Evans, the heavy equipment place over in Athens, uses a Snap-on, and they're very happy with it.
But you are saying that you think with the diagnostics that a large majority of the stuff can be fixed in-house?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions? Is there a motion that we recommend the council's purchase of the diagnostic equipment from Snap-on Tools?
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion. Is anybody second the motion?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second that we recommend to council that we purchase the diagnostic equipment from Snap-on Tools. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We recommend that to council.
Thank y'all.
Thank you very much, Mayor. That's all we have.
Okay. Public safety?
Chief?
Yes, sir. We had a heat unit go out. It's the one that takes care of the city court or our municipal court building. We got 3 estimates on the repair. If you look at your stuff, it starts with the lowest bid going. To the highest. After looking at the warranties, and there's some significant differences in the warranty, my recommendation would be take the option of the Daikin, who is the units being offered by Phelps. It's this year it doubles. The biggest difference is it doubles the heat exchange warranty about 10 years, and also the parts warranty about 4 years over the others. It cost about $1 grand more than the lowest bid, but I feel like the difference in the warranties would you know, the parts warranty, just it being 5 years versus 1 year, in that size unit, that you could spend that in a 1 day just on parts. But and that's after talking with Jeremiah. I'm not a heating and air expert, but I feel like that warranty difference would pay for itself. All 3 of them are very reputable. All 3 of them are, you know, they do a great job. Just the warranty difference, I think, is a big factor.
Is there any difference in that BTUs?
They're pretty. They're pretty much the same thing, Mr. Richardson. It's
They're all 8.5 ton units.
it's all 8.5 ton. I don't see a BTU number on Phelps's.
The one we had in place, is it out of warranty?
It's blown. It's yeah. Yes, sir. It's. It's over. It's like some of these vehicles that he was talking about been here long, and him, it's done all it's gonna do for us. And there's money in that budget line on building maintenance. It just kind of, it'll knock a big knot out of it, but maybe we'll have a good year on the rest of the stuff.
Any more discussion? Get a motion, go with Phelps, is that?
Yeah, with the Daikin, and if we just looked up, the Daikin is supposed to be the #1 manufacturer of this type of equipment in the world, so. That would be the option I would say go with.
Okay.
Phillips option 1.
Yes, sir.
Phelps option 1. Here. Motion.
I make that motion that we purchase it from Phelps.
Okay. Second. I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We'll bring that to full council next week.
Thank you.
That's all we got, public safety.
All right, EDA.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. We had a great month at the end of December as far as just new businesses and energy downtown. As you know, great holiday season for a lot of our owners. We had a new business open in January. We have a new one open on February 1st. We'll have a new one open March 1st. And we'll have some current businesses expanding. So that's really great, good news. A lot of the empties are getting filled up, and there is another one that is almost open, so there's another one in there. It's a dance studio down on South Broad. So we're real excited about that. We have new tenants in Historic City Hall, and we're still trying to wrap our head around how to make that building the best asset for downtown. That's one of the DDA projects that we're looking at. And also, I know I've mentioned wayfinding signage, and they're not digital copies. I have some hard copies of something that Rick Holder has proposed to work with the DDA for a corridor sign at South Broad at the Walton Mill property. He wants to use, and if you can just pass these around. There's two things here. Just take one each.
Okay.
One is not the final design, but it's where we are in the design process of additional City Hall signage on Broad Street so that the public, when they're going through downtown, will know that this is the City Hall building, and hopefully it would coordinate with our corridor signage with downtown. So that's the color design, and that's not the final copy. We're looking at a brick base, trying to get it to fit. DDA and the design committee are working on this, and then the drawing, if you'll look at the drawing, this is a flywheel engine that would have been in the cotton mill. It's an actual engine, and he wants to make that into corridor signage where we would put, where it says Walton Mill, we would put Welcome to Downtown Monroe there. So we would partner with Rick to design this corridor signage, and it would be on his private property. We're excited about the project because it's almost going to be a piece of art. It's historic. It'll be unique, be kind of a landmark in downtown. But I wanted the council to see what we're working on and answer any questions you may have about it. I'm excited to have a private owner come forward and want to do something fun like this while we are in the middle of our signage wayfinding project. So that's going on. We're continuing to try to grab more of there's a lot of restricted parking in downtown that private businesses kind of restrict for their businesses, and I'm working with a number of those to see if they will offer it as public parking courtesy of their business. So we're kind of working on some of those things too, just to get more public parking available. And those are and the other thing we're updating are the pole banners that go on the light poles. That say Monroe, our town, that are green. They're down because it's holiday season, but before putting those back up, we're trying to look at one that reflects our more recent branding and kind of colors of downtown. Be happy to answer any questions. I know that's a lot of information, but those are some of the current projects we'd like to get going as we start the new year.
Well, comment that I attended this morning on Downtown Merchant Coffee that DDA sponsored, and what was, I guess, most amazing, I mean, number one, there was a large crowd there. I didn't count, 35 people, so, and a significant number of these people that I didn't know, which was, I was glad to see, because these are new people that have businesses in downtown. Several of the new businesses are people that are really active and want to be active and want to do things for the city and for downtown. So it's really encouraging to see this kind of enthusiasm that's going on downtown right now.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sadie. We'll move into items of discussion for next week. We have application for spirituous liquor and beer and wine on premises consumption at the Cotton Warehouse. We'll have our first reading of domestic animals ordinance amendment.
Mayor, I think Patrick was going to comment just briefly on the two ordinances.
Yeah, these ordinances, actually, the domestic animal ordinance was kind of brought up quite a while ago. We've just now gotten around to looking into it, and it's basically going to try and limit it's to limit tethering of animals rather than keep them contained rather than not tied to trees or whatever, chained to dog houses, things like that. It was brought up basically actually by Miss Malcolm, and the chief brought it to my attention, and that's when we started looking into it. It's actually going to make it a little bit safer for the police too when they're going behind houses and things like that and running into chained up dogs that they weren't aware of. It has a lot of things to help with the animal, not animal control, but just animal treatment, and it also goes as far as to limiting the number of animals based on the lot size. So, I mean, it's there and it can, it's pretty involved, but that's the basics of that one. And on the garbage collection amendment, it's really simple. We just had people that were concerned that people didn't put their garbage containers back to their house or what have you. It gave a bad appearance when they'd leave it out in public view. So we just changed that to require it to be brought all the way back to the front building line of the house. And that's pretty much it on that one.
Okay. We have a resolution authorizing the contract for funding of T grant.
Mayor, these 4, 5, and 6 here all deal with the T grant. Just first off, I want to say thank you all for your support. We did get our funding back for the South Broad Street T project. If you remember, DOT had pulled the funding back before, or I guess around November or so, and we got in touch with our representative, Bruce Williamson, who then got in touch with Jamie Boswell, who's our DOT representative, and had a good sit down with him, and actually last Friday we got the contracts that we were awarded the money for this fiscal year, so which is good. That's what these next 3 items are. One is just standard resolution, and the city attorneys have looked at all 3, and basically just, we are recognizing our duties in this resolution, saying that we'll execute proper bid procedures and whatnot, and it also has a reference to date of what we've currently spent, and I did not get that figure. For the T project, Renee, it's upwards of $100 and something thousand of our required $250 match, so we're almost there, and we'll be paying that with SPLOST money. And then item 5 and 6, the T enhancement, the T activities agreement, just basically states that work must be completed by June 30th, and it's just a standard agreement with GDOT. And also prescribes our $250,000 match. And then the right-of-way mowing and maintenance agreement, Jeremiah's looked over that, basically saying that during the scope of the project and the length of the project that will maintain any right-of-way. And it also lists certain responsibilities in a maintenance work plan that we are, required to do, keep stuff pruned, keep it trimmed, keep it watered when new plants go in. So that's pretty much it for those items.
That figures up. $178,000, just
Okay,
a
so
little over
we
that.
paid today $178,000 of our $250.
Okay. How about the airport power line relocation grant?
Yes, sir. That's the grant, final grant of $371,182. We'll be finished with that project, and we can move on from there in the future and actually do positive things, I guess, at the airport. So, yeah, that's just basically an agreement. For this last grant amount.
Okay, and then the discussion of the zoning ordinance amendment.
I'm going to turn that actually over to our city attorney, Paul Rosenthal, for a brief presentation of this codes.
I will keep it brief. We have, this is a long time coming, and we've had many good ups and we've had many good downs along the way of getting this code rewritten. And so what you've got in front of you is what I think is a really good draft, but it's still not, I'm not going to say it's in final form. There's a lot of formatting we have to do, and certainly subject to further public input. What Matthew and I have spoken about on this code draft, I'll give you a little bit of brief background and talk about what the code does. But what we've talked about on a time frame is this month and next month having this item on the agenda for discussion. In addition, in the month of March, holding, I'll get with Mr. Kelly, and Mr. Kelly and I will hold, along with any of you that want to attend or lead the meeting, hold 2 or 3 public town hall meetings to talk about the code as well, so that we can get input. We've had plenty of effort in the past, but then it's kind of been quiet for a while, and so we want to sort of bring this out to the forefront for the public to provide input on the code draft, and then go for first reading in April with a adoption and second reading in May. So we don't want to rush it, but we also want to go ahead and get this code through so that we can have us a new code. It would not include a zoning map change at this time. So if you go back to our history, we have been through quite a bit on rewrites, and we've got a very good draft of a smart code, but every time we use the word smart code, we kept getting a lot of pushback. So this is not a smart code rewrite. What you have here is a very good working draft that has taken basically our existing code, reworked it with all of the requested, I won't say all, the majority of the requested changes that we heard over and over and over and over again in our charrettes, in our LCI meetings, and our code rewrite committees, and put them into a still traditional code format. And predominantly Mr. Kelly and my associate Josh Johnson are the strong backs of this project. They're the ones that have carried the lion's share of the work and done an excellent job. So Mr. Kelly, your code enforcement officer, and Mr. Johnson should be credited for all this work. I just happen to be the mouthpiece that's standing up here talking about it now. But what we've done is we've taken all of those and put this in, and what we've got is we've got a very good code draft that addresses several of the big things. Sign ordinance and getting that cleaned up. Aesthetic design controls. Without taking the step of going all the way to sort of this fully progressive smart code. Now, I think that we still will adopt that smart code in the near future as an optional code. I think that's probably something we'll do, because when we started talking about it a few years ago, it was extremely progressive and not a lot of people were doing it. Now when you have the conversation, when y'all go to Mayor's Day, when you go to GMA, you'll hear that there's a lot more cities doing it. And I think that it's something that we need to have on our shelf as an option. I really think that we do. That'll ultimately be a decision for you guys to make. But in the interim, to raise the minimum standards for the city, to address some of these building design limitations, address some of the signage problems that we have. I think that this new zoning ordinance will greatly improve the quality of new development and infill development in Monroe without creating too much of a, what will the word be, too much of a major paradigm shift change of the way that we do our zoning, the way we do our code. It won't change the map out of the box. We've correlated the table so that the zoning classifications that are sitting on the books right now today, all those colors will just transfer over. We're going to keep all the zoning classifications. We've correlated them, though, to make them better zoning zoning categories and address a lot of the concerns that people have had and voiced, things that you have voiced, things that your constituents have voiced, stakeholders have voiced. And so I think it's a really good step in the right direction. Now, it will always be the law of unintended consequences. I think we'll make huge strides in improvement with this new code implementation. I'm sure that once we're finished with it, we will find 4 new problems that we have created by passing this code, but I think that's just the nature of the beast, because we're talking about taking a code that was written quite a while ago and pretty much kind of scooping the whole thing out and throwing it out and starting over with a new one that is very comprehensive, that is very thorough, but it does need your input. It needs the community's input, it needs your input, and we welcome any of that input. It is a good final working draft. I'm still reading through it. We'll provide more edits and changes before we get to the final version. We've got to fully format it because it's not formatted very well right now. We'll send it out for formatting so it's good and clean before we go to publishing and printing it. So we need a lot of input from the community. We need a lot of input from you guys, and our plan is to have 2 to 3 town hall meetings in March to allow opportunity for that input. We will advertise those in the paper. We'll get with utilities and advertising on the city's channel on the cable system so that we can get as much input as possible. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, but you now have the final working draft of our new code so that we can get the new code in place basically before this summer hits.
Rosenthal, since we just got this, and obviously hadn't had a chance to look at it. One of the areas that I've had real concerns on that I hoped we could get something done or even earlier was on reference to signs that are outside buildings, not signs on buildings, but, you know, the outside sign. You know, in front of it. I think we're at a point now of hopefully getting new businesses coming to Monroe. I'm not talking historic district as much as the whole city. Is that covered in here?
Yes.
I think of things like the Longhorn sign, Apple sign, which are really classy signs as opposed to many of the others around.
Yes, it has a comprehensive sign section. The signs are the biggest struggle areas on just about any zoning ordinance for a whole host of reasons. One of the most predominant reasons is because you actually bring into play First Amendment free speech issues, plus you have the reality of quality aesthetic. And you want it to look good, yet those retailers and vendors and businesses want to make sure that people can see where they are and how to get to them. So the sign section.
We're behind many cities already on this, because most cities around us have already adopted that type of sign ordinance. And I just.
Well, when you say that type of sign ordinance, I'm sorry, I don't
know. The low signs versus the high signs, I guess that's the easiest way I know.
Sure, sure. And this addresses this. I mean, there are still some, I mean, they're not going to all necessarily be stuck on the ground, so to speak. You know, this draft does allow for some taller signs, but the general concept of what you're talking about the pole signs, large pole signs, are generally limited. I don't want to say prohibited, but are generally limited in this draft.
Well, I've voiced concern on this for several months now, but I think we're waiting too long if we have new businesses come into town to put the tall pole signs back up as opposed to putting reasonable signs. I just like to see us move on that as quickly as
Go ahead.
Mr. Bradley, I just wanted to reassure you on that, because we had conversation about those exact things several months ago. I got right on it. I took your input, and it has a lot of influence on what's in there. So as you read through it, you'll see that a lot of what we discussed and what I've discussed along the same lines with other people is in this ordinance.
It is.
So I think you'll be pleased with it. If not, again, we welcome the input, and we're open to tweaking this and getting it squared away by the summer. But like I said, right after we spoke, that's when I went to work on that, and with your input, drafted what I've got
Two
there.
things sort of, the last edits to this draft were another major rework of the sign ordinance, based in part on your meetings with Mr. Kelly. And also, we added another provision, which will add another layer to it, which is a corridor overlay provision. And basically what that says is, you know, we've always heard this. I say always, since I've been here. Always heard this. The Ford pass that we come into town, sometimes we get the comment, or frequently get the comment, that they lack the attractiveness that we want them to introduce people to what Monroe is. So we've added a gateway corridor overlay to the ordinance, which basically, kind of like our historic preservation districts, it says these historic preservation districts are very important and we want to provide specific controls over them. We've done the same thing basically on the corridors. It says this is the 4 ways you come into Monroe, and we want to have specific important control over them. So it actually creates an additional committee that requires almost like a certificate of appropriateness for HPC, the same thing for your gateway corridors. So I think that that's another way that those issues can be addressed. But we always have to be careful on sign ordinances that we say this particular thing is completely prohibited. Then we run into the risk of the sign ordinance itself being challenged from a constitutional perspective. So I know exactly what you're saying, and I hear you, and I want us, and I support you, and I think that we've done a lot of that. But to say complete prohibition, we have to be careful that we haven't said that we've completely prohibited particular types of signs altogether, because the height issue has been litigated pretty extensively on a constitutional front. And so we just as much like the billboard issue has been litigated pretty extensively. So we just have to be very careful that we are balancing the constitutionally protected free speech issues of commercial speech with these aesthetic controls of limiting the types of signs and the square footage and the height and those sort of things. Any other questions?
Yeah, just one other one, because it does affect so many people. And I know he talks about the public town hall meetings, which I think is a great idea. But how else do we get this pretty exhaustive information out to the public, particularly business owners, I guess, as well as residents?
Well, I got quotes. I had Ms. Prather run a quote back in November for us. Basically, here are your options. Our legal requirements will be that we will run an ad, a legal tombstone ad in the paper when we get closer to April for the first and second readings for April and May. We'll post it on the website. We'll get this on the website tomorrow. We'll post it on the website. We will get with utilities and get it on the TV channel. And we will post for the town hall meetings. The only other option that I know of that I know City of Roswell just updated their code and they did this, and I think cost is about $2,500 is we can take our tax roll and we can do a postcard mailer of our tax roll through the company that basically outputs our tax bills, and do a postcard mailer that says the City of Monroe is currently undergoing a rewrite of its zoning and code ordinances. Town hall meetings are this date, and this date, and public hearings on the matter are April and May dates. Come attend. Information's on the website. So we can do that if you guys want to. It's not legally required, and I think the cost was about $2,500 if we wanted to do that. We can't really do utility stuffers because that's going to go to all the utility customers, but not the property owners. And you know, we've got really both in this community, both on a commercial and a residential side.
Any more questions? Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mayor.
And with that being said, that's
Mayor, can I ask one other
sure.
question? Going back to other items on this item of discussion on the domestic animals ordinance and the garbage collection ordinance, I guess same question. How do we communicate that to citizens in Monroe? That so we can get feedback on their thoughts on those two ordinances also.
We can also put those on the website, just the actual ordinance, change and amendment. Be glad to do that first thing in the morning. And if anybody who does visit the website.
I mean, I've read those two, and I think I agree with them. I just. Because I think it does affect a lot of people. I would love to hear from people in the community about it also.
Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Richardson, second by Ms. Scott, all in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
One of them can be sitting on the state chief.
surplus that.